Admiral Han couldn't sleep. The night before everything changed always felt the longest. He stood alone in the curved observation deck of the ECS Defiance, Earth's most advanced warship and the pride of humanity's hidden fleet. Through the reinforced glass dome, the stars stretched endlessly, cold points of light that had once seemed so far beyond reach. 20 years of secrets were about to end. Han ran his hand along the smooth metal railing. The ship hummed with quiet power beneath his fingertips. On paper, humans weren't supposed to have this technology. The Galactic Conclave, that collection of smug alien diplomats, still thought Earth was struggling with basic interplanetary travel, barely able to reach Mars without incident. If only they knew. "Admiral, final fleet positions confirmed," said Lieutenant Park, appearing silently at the deck entrance. "All ships report ready status." Han nodded without turning. "And our observers near the Tarsian system?" "The Voraxians are moving exactly as intelligence predicted. 3 more colony ships departed their space this morning. Their invasion fleet will reach Tarsus Prime within 30 hours. Another world about to be swallowed by the Voraxian Empire while the Conclave debated and delayed. The Tarsians, peaceful pre-spaceflight beings with technology roughly equivalent to Earth's early 1900s, had no idea what was coming, no way to defend themselves. "The Conclave?" Han asked, already knowing the answer. "Still in emergency session. 4th day now. Ambassador Kim reports they're still considering options." Park's voice carried the same disgust Han felt. Han finally turned from the viewport. "They'll still be considering options when the last Tarsian is enslaved. This was why Earth had built its secret fleet. This was why humanity had played weak and technologically backward for 2 decades. While officially sending rust bucket ships to conclave meetings and pleading for technology transfers, Earth's hidden shipyards throughout the solar system had been building something extraordinary. 273 warships, fast attack frigates, heavy destroyers, support and medical vessels, and the Defiance, a ship that could outrun, outfight, and outthink anything the Voraxians had, all built using technology the aliens thought humans couldn't possibly understand. "Show me the fleet," Han ordered. Park pressed a sequence on his wrist device. The observation deck darkened and illuminated with a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. Glowing dots represented Earth's hidden armada, currently dispersed throughout the asteroid belt, hidden in Jupiter's shadow, or disguised as mining operations near Saturn's rings. "Tomorrow, we stop hiding," Han said quietly. They had learned the hard way that the galaxy wasn't the peaceful utopia the first contact teams had described. When humans had encountered the Galactic Conclave 15 years ago, they'd been dazzled by alien technology and promises of cooperation. Then they'd watched as the Conclave stood by while the Phylaxians were conquered. Then the Iridians, always with the same excuses about non-interference and complex politics. Earth had decided then, humans would not be next. "Admiral, President, Lee is requesting final confirmation for Operation Daybreak," Park said, holding out a secure tablet. Han pressed his thumb to the screen, authorizing the greatest military gamble in human history. "Inform all ship captains, final briefing at 600, we move at 800. From his pocket, Han pulled a small metal object, a bullet casing from the last major war on Earth, a reminder of what humanity had overcome, of what they were capable of when pushed. "The Voraxians think they're the predators," Han said, closing his fist around the casing. "They've never met humans before." Later that night, Han visited the ship's mess hall. Crew members snapped to attention as he entered, but he waved them back to their meals. These were Earth's finest, pilots, engineers, and tacticians who had trained in secret for years, knowing they might never be called upon to use their skills. Commander Lee approached with a cup of coffee. "Can't sleep either?" Han accepted the cup gratefully. "Last quiet night we'll have for a while." Lee nodded toward the crowded tables. "They're ready. We all are." Conversations throughout the mess continued in hushed tones. Some crew members laughed nervously. Others sat in contemplative silence. All of them knew what tomorrow meant. If things went wrong, Earth would face not just the Voraxians, but potentially the combined might of multiple alien species outraged by humanity's deception. "Have you seen the latest intelligence from the Conclave?" Lee asked quietly. Han nodded. Their spies had confirmed it. Several Conclave representatives were secretly in league with the Varaxians, deliberately stalling any intervention. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had imagined. "We're doing the right thing," Lee said, perhaps trying to convince herself as much as her admiral. Han stared into his coffee. The right thing would have been the Conclave doing its job so we didn't have to reveal ourselves like this. As Han returned to his quarters, he paused at a viewport. Somewhere out there, beyond the reaches of the solar system, millions of Tarsians were going about their lives, unaware that either slavery or salvation was approaching. "We're coming," Han whispered to the stars. "Just hold on a little longer." Dawn would bring Revelation Day, the day the galaxy learned that humans were not the simple developing species they pretended to be. The day Earth's secret armada would finally emerge from the shadows of Sol. The massive space station that housed the Galactic Conclave looked like a glittering wheel spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars. Inside the Grand Assembly Chamber, hundreds of alien representatives argued in their native tongues while translation devices struggled to keep up with the heated debate. Ambassador Kim sat quietly, watching the spectacle with growing disappointment. For 3 hours, the emergency session had gone nowhere. The Varaxian representative, a tall being with metallic scales, continued to deny any hostile intentions toward the Tarsian homeworld. "My esteemed colleagues," the Varaxian ambassador hissed, "through translator devices, these are merely cultural exchange vessels. The Tarsians will benefit greatly from our guidance." Several representatives nodded in agreement. The Varaxian Empire had powerful allies within the Conclave. Kim checked his secure communicator one last time. The message was simple. "Operation. Daybreak initiated. T-minus 10 minutes. He took a deep breath and stood. As Earth's official representative, Kim rarely spoke during these sessions. Humans were still considered newcomers, barely worth acknowledging. When he approached the central speaking platform, several alien delegates exchanged confused glances. "Distinguished representatives," Kim began, his voice steady despite the tension knotting his stomach. "Earth has observed these proceedings with great interest for many years." A few delegates snickered. The Varaxian representative didn't even bother to look up from his display. "We have watched as this body has repeatedly failed to protect vulnerable species," Kim continued. "We have documented your empty promises and selective enforcement of your own laws." The chamber grew quieter. This was not the usual deferential tone humans adopted in conclave meetings. Earth has concluded that the Conclave is either unwilling or unable to fulfill its founding purpose of protecting peaceful civilizations from aggression. The Varaxian representative finally looked up, eyes narrowing. The human delegate appears confused about his place here. Perhaps he should be reminded that Earth's primitive technology and limited understanding of galactic affairs do not qualify, Kim interrupted, something no human had ever dared before. "Actually, we understand far more than you believe. And as for our technology..." He paused, checking the time. "I believe a demonstration is in order." At that exact moment, the emergency alarms throughout the station began blaring. The massive viewing screens that surrounded the chamber switched automatically to external feeds, showing what had triggered the station's proximity alerts. Ships. Dozens of sleek, powerful warships had appeared simultaneously around the station, emerging from faster-than-light travel with precision that should have been impossible for humans. The chamber erupted in chaos. "This is Admiral Han of the Earth Defense Fleet," announced a calm voice over the station's communication systems. "We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we needed your undivided attention." Kim watched the reactions around the room. Shock, fear, outrage, and on a few faces, calculation. The balance of power had just shifted dramatically. For 2 decades, Earth has maintained the appearance of technological inferiority, while building a force capable of defending not just ourselves, but others who cannot defend themselves, Kim explained, as the chamber gradually fell silent. Today, we reveal the truth because circumstances demand it. On the screens, more footage appeared. The rest of Earth's fleet taking positions along the Varaxian border. Over 200 vessels, each more advanced than anything humans were supposed to possess. Impossible, whispered the Varaxian representative. Your species cannot have mastered quantum fold technology or gravitic shielding. Kim smiled thinly. We're fast learners. The head of the conclave, a tall, willowy being named High Commissioner Jun, approached the central platform. Ambassador Kim, this deception is unprecedented. You have violated numerous protocols. With respect, Commissioner, Kim replied. We've violated protocols to uphold principles, the same principles the conclave claims to stand for, but repeatedly fails to enforce. Kim gestured to a series of data streams now filling the secondary screens. These are real-time images of the Varaxian invasion fleet approaching Tarsus Prime. Not cultural exchange vessels, warships and troop carriers. The Varaxian representative hissed in anger but didn't deny the evidence. Earth has a simple proposition, Kim continued. The conclave will immediately enforce its own protection laws. Regarding the Tarsian people or humanity will do it for you. Throughout the station, beings of all species were receiving urgent messages from their homeworlds as news of Earth's armada spread across galactic networks. The revelation was sending shockwaves through every civilization. In the hours that followed, Kim remained at the center of a diplomatic storm. Some delegates approached with thinly veiled threats, others with sudden offers of alliance. The station hummed with urgent communications as governments across the galaxy scrambled to reassess their understanding of humanity. You've made us appear weak and foolish, growled the Drekian ambassador, a usually friendly ally. How could Earth hide something of this magnitude? We did what was necessary, Kim replied simply. Your intelligence services saw what we wanted them to see. Through it all, Earth's ships remained in position, a silent statement of intent. Footage of the fleet dominated news feeds on thousands of worlds. Military analysts across the galaxy frantically studied the designs, trying to understand how humans had advanced so quickly. Late that night, in his private quarters aboard the station, Kim received a secure transmission from Admiral Han. The Varaxians are continuing their approach to Tarsus Prime, Han reported, his face grim on the small screen. They're calling our bluff. Kim nodded slowly. They had anticipated this. The Varaxians had too much pride to back down immediately, too much at stake. Then we proceed to Phase 3, Kim said quietly. The galaxy needs to see we mean exactly what we say. As he ended the transmission, Kim looked out his viewport at Earth's flagship, the Defiance, hovering against the starfield. Tomorrow, the fleet would show the galaxy that humanity's resolve matched its technological prowess. The revelation was complete. The confrontation was just beginning. The Tarsian sun cast long shadows across the bow of the ECS Defiance as Admiral Han watched the tactical display with unwavering focus. 15 Varaxian warships approached the beautiful blue-green planet. Below, their formations tight and disciplined. The Tarsians themselves remained blissfully unaware of the conflict about to erupt in their skies, a civilization still marveling at their own first aircraft, never imagining space fleets would soon battle for their future. Varaxian command ship is broadcasting, reported communications officer Song. They're demanding we withdraw immediately. Han exchanged glances with his second in command. Put them through. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the angular face of Fleet Commander Krex, his metallic scales glinting under harsh lighting. Human vessels, he said, mandibles clicking with barely contained rage. You have overstepped your authority. The Conclave has no jurisdiction here, and neither do you. Withdraw your ships or be destroyed. Han remained perfectly still. Commander? Krex, we both know what your cultural exchange really means for the Tarsians. Enslavement, resource stripping, eventual extinction. Primitive species require guidance, Krex responded coldly. This is the natural order. The strong lead the weak. Then consider this a change in the natural order, Han replied. Earth stands with Tarsus Prime. You have 1 hour to reverse course. The Varaxian commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Your bluff at the conclave was impressive, human. But everyone knows Earth's ships are merely for show. You have no combat experience, no battle doctrine. Your technological toys cannot save you from annihilation. The transmission cut abruptly. Lieutenant Park looked up from her station. Sir, they're deploying fighters. 36 craft. Attack formation. Han nodded calmly. Right on schedule. They think we'll panic. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Han. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Execute Battle Plan Theta. Across the fleet, officers sprang into action. 20 years of secret drills and simulations were about to be tested in real combat. The first Varaxian fighters streaked toward the human blockade, energy weapons charging. They expected the humans to scatter, to reveal their inexperience. Instead, the Earth ships shifted with perfect coordination. What had appeared to be a standard defensive line transformed in seconds. Smaller vessels sliding into position behind larger ones, weapon ports opening in unexpected configurations. The first barrage from the Varaxian fighters hit nothing but empty space. Counter-offensive pattern now, Han ordered quietly. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for decades to come. Earth's vessels didn't just return fire. They executed maneuvers the Varaxians had never seen, using technologies they didn't know humans possessed. The ECS Huntress, a sleek destroyer under Captain Yu's command, vanished from normal space, only to reappear behind the fighter squadron. Not a conventional jump, something new that allowed precision micro-jumps within a battle zone. Before the Varaxian pilots could react, the Huntress deployed its main weapon, a gravity lance that didn't so much destroy the fighters as collapse them from within. First squadron neutralized, reported Tactical Officer Jin, her voice professionally detached despite the victory. Varaxian capital ships accelerating. They're committing their main force. Han nodded. Now they'll take us seriously. All ships Phase 2. Protect the Tarsian atmosphere at all costs. The battle expanded as the Varaxian warships engaged. Their technology was powerful, refined through centuries of conquest. Their crews were veterans of dozens of subjugation campaigns, but they had never faced humans before. Where the Varaxians expected conventional tactics, Earth's fleet responded with unpredictable patterns. When Varaxian commanders directed their fire at what appeared to be command vessels, they discovered the human fleet operated on a distributed command structure, no single point of failure. Most shocking of all was the human weapons technology. While the Varaxians relied on direct energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, Earth's ships deployed systems that manipulated the fabric of space itself. The Varaxian flagship is targeting our port flank, called out Lieutenant Park. Han studied the tactical display. They're trying to create a gap to send landing craft through. Deploy the Aegis net. 5 Earth vessels moved into formation, generating an interlocking field that made the laws of physics temporarily suggestion rather than rule. The massive energy blast from the Varaxian flagship bent around the formation, harmlessly dispersing into space. Throughout the bridge, officers maintained their focus, but Han could see the pride in their eyes. 20 years of secrecy, of building and planning while being dismissed as backward by the galactic community, were paying off. 3 hours into the battle, the outcome was no longer in doubt. 7 Varaxian warships drifted powerless, their systems disabled by targeted EMP weapons the humans had perfected. 3 more had retreated to the system's edge, too damaged to continue fighting. The rest, including Commander Krex's flagship, maintained their attack with increasingly desperate tactics. "Sir," said Communications Officer Song, "we're receiving widespread transmissions from across the galaxy. The battle is being observed by nearly every major world. The conclave session has been suspended as representatives watch the feed." Hadn't expected that. The political implications would be enormous. On the main view screen, the Varaxian flagship launched a final, reckless assault, accelerating directly toward the Defiance. Their intention was clear. If they couldn't win, they would at least destroy the human flagship in a blaze of glory. "Holding course," reported Navigation Officer Lee, her hands steady on the controls. Han waited until the last possible moment. Execute Phantom Protocol. The Defiance seemed to shimmer and then split into 5 identical images of itself, advanced holographic projections combined with partial phase shifting. The Varaxian flagship plunged through 4 illusions before, scraping past the real Defiance, shields sparking where they nearly collided. Target their engines, Han ordered. Precision strike only. The shot from the Defiance's main cannon took surgical precision, disabling the Varaxian propulsion system without breaching their reactor core. The massive warship drifted to a halt, powerless but intact. Open a channel, Han said. Commander Krex appeared on screen again, his metallic scales dulled with smoke and battle damage. What are you waiting for, human? Finish it. Han shook his head. We're not like you, Commander. Prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be treated with respect and returned to your people. But your conquest of Tarsus Prime is over. As the Earth fleet secured the disabled Varaxian vessels, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Fear and anger spread through multiple species, not just at humanity's deception, but at their shocking technological prowess. Emergency sessions were being called in a dozen governments. Admiral, said Communications Officer Song, Ambassador Kim reports that an emergency coalition is forming within the Conclave. 7 species have already signed a mutual defense pact against Earth. Han had expected this too. The victory at 2. Tarsus Prime was just the beginning of a much more complicated conflict. Send word to Earth, Han replied. Tell them it's time for Ambassador Kim to play his final card. The Conclave chamber hadn't been this packed in centuries. Representatives from over 200 species crowded the massive hall, their voices creating a storm of noise that the acoustic dampener struggled to contain. On the central display, footage of the Battle of Tarsus Prime played on a continuous loop. Earth ships executing maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine, deploying weapons that shouldn't exist in the hands of such a young species. Ambassador Kim watched it all from his newly assigned seat, no longer relegated to the back rows where minor species sat, but now prominently positioned where everyone could see him, where everyone could watch him. The human must answer for this deception, thundered the Alaxian representative, his forearms gesturing dramatically. For 20 years they have lied to this body while building weapons of war. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. 7 major powers had already formed a coalition against Earth, with more considering joining by the hour. Military vessels from a dozen worlds were being mobilized. Kim remained calm as he rose to speak. He had expected this reaction. In fact, he had counted on it. Distinguished representatives, he began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. I understand your anger, your fear. Earth concealed its true capabilities, and now you worry what other secrets we might be keeping. The Drakian delegate, head of the newly formed coalition, leaned forward. Your kind has made a mockery of galactic law. You speak of protecting the Tarsians, yet your deception threatens the stability of 1,000 worlds. Kim nodded slowly. You're right that stability is at stake, but you're wrong about who threatens it. He gestured to his aide, who activated a small device. Before I continue, I'm transmitting access codes to each of your secure networks. What you're about to receive comes from Earth's intelligence archives gathered over the past 20 years. Confusion spread through the chamber as personal devices began chiming with incoming data. Then came the gasps, the shocked exclamations, in some cases, outright denials. This is fabricated, shouted the Varaxian representative, rising so quickly his chair toppled backward. Every file is authenticated, Kim replied calmly. Every conversation verified. Every financial transaction documented. Earth hasn't just been building ships these past 20 years. We've been watching, learning, understanding how the galaxy really works. On the main display, the battle footage disappeared, replaced by meeting recordings, financial transfers, and private communications between conclave officials and corporate interests from multiple worlds. The Phylaxian genocide 7 years ago wasn't a tragic failure of diplomacy, Kim continued, pointing to the screen. It was engineered to open their rare mineral deposits to exploitation. The mining rights were already being negotiated while this body debated whether to intervene. More files appeared. Contracts signed months before the public events they were responding to, proving prior knowledge and coordination. The Iridian plague that wiped out their leadership? Engineered in laboratories owned by corporations with direct ties to 3 members of the Conclave's inner council. The chamber grew deathly quiet as the evidence mounted. Corruption on a galactic scale, conflicts manufactured for profit, selective enforcement of protection laws based not on principle, but on what resources could be gained. And now we come to the Tarsians, Kim said, his voice hardening. A world rich in isotopes necessary for quantum computing. A peaceful species with no concept of the value of what lies beneath their forests. The Varaxian cultural exchange was approved by key conclave members 16 months ago, with profit sharing already established for after the subjugation. The Varaxian representative had gone utterly still, scales paling to a sickly gray. Hi. Commissioner June approached the central platform, her normally composed features strained. These are serious accusations that require thorough investigation. If there is corruption within the conclave, it must be addressed, but there is no if, Commissioner, Kim interrupted, bringing up more documents. Your own signature appears on 17 different confidential approvals that directly violated conclave law. Your personal accounts show transfers totaling over 50 million universal credits from Varaxian-controlled shell companies. The chamber erupted again, but this time the anger had a new target. Species that had been victims of similar unfortunate conflicts began demanding answers from their representatives. Long-held suspicions suddenly had concrete evidence to support them. The Drakian delegate, who had been leading the anti-Earth coalition, now found himself facing questions from his own government about his involvement in several documented schemes. Earth's deception was never aimed at conquest, Kim continued when the noise subsided enough for him to be heard. We built our fleet because we saw the truth. The conclave was designed to give the appearance of galactic governance while enabling the strong to prey upon the weak. We hid our advancements because we knew what would happen if certain interests discovered them too soon. He gestured to the coalition members. Look at how quickly you united against us when you thought we threatened your power. Not your people or your worlds. Your power. In the following hours, the chamber descended into factions. Species that had suffered under the corrupt system rallied around Earth's revelations. Those implicated in the evidence scrambled to distance themselves or discredit the accusations. A few simply withdrew their representatives entirely, racing home to deal with the political fallout on their own worlds. Kim worked tirelessly, meeting with delegations that wanted to verify specific evidence or understand Earth's intentions. In a small conference room adjacent to the main chamber, he sat with representatives from 12 mid-tier powers who had been on the fence about joining the anti-Earth coalition. What does Earth want from all this? Asked the Talarian ambassador, her crystalline features refracting the room's light. You've thrown the conclave into chaos. You've revealed military capabilities that frighten even our oldest species. What is your endgame? Kim looked around the table. Reform. Real reform. The conclave was founded on noble principles: cooperative, governance, protection of developing species, peaceful resolution of conflicts. Somewhere along the way it became a tool for the powerful to maintain their advantages. And Earth appoints itself the galaxy's conscience? Asked another delegate skeptically. No, Kim replied firmly. Earth appoints itself as the catalyst for change. What happens next is up to all of us. By the end of the day, the anti-Earth coalition had fractured beyond repair. 3 of its founding members were facing internal revolts as their populations learned of their government's involvement in the corruption. 2 others had approached Kim privately, seeking to switch sides. In his private quarters that night, Kim finally allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. The gambit had worked. Barely. Instead of a unified front against Earth, the galaxy was now focused on cleaning its own house. His secure communicator chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Han. The fleet is maintaining position, Han reported. How long before we know if they'll stand down? Kim rubbed his tired eyes. It's already happening. 3 coalition members have recalled their ships. The others are hesitating, waiting to see which way the political winds blow. He paused. We've created quite a mess out here. Han's expression remained serious. A necessary mess. Better to lance the wound than let the infection spread. Kim nodded slowly. The hard part comes next. Building something better from the ruins. As he ended the transmission, Kim looked out at the stars. Earth had taken an enormous gamble, risking everything on the belief that once the truth was exposed, enough species would choose justice over power. The next few weeks would determine if they'd been right. 6 months after the Battle of Tarsus Prime, the rebuilt conclave chamber gleamed under soft lighting. The old hierarchical seating had been replaced with a circular arrangement where all species sat as equals. At the center stood a holographic display showing real-time protection operations across the galaxy, transparent governance in action. Admiral Han adjusted his formal dress uniform as he walked the perimeter of the chamber. Even after months of diplomatic work, he felt more comfortable on a starship bridge than among politicians. Still, some battles couldn't be won with advanced weaponry. Nervous? Asked Ambassador Kim, falling into step beside him. Just ready to get back to work, Han replied. All this ceremony feels unnecessary. Kim smiled. Ceremony matters. Symbols matter. Today marks something unprecedented. A genuine chance to rebuild galactic governance from the ground up. They paused at a viewport overlooking the massive space dock where ships from 24 worlds were assembled. Earth vessels flew alongside former adversaries, their hulls repainted with the new insignia of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. Did you ever think we'd get here? Han asked quietly. Kim's expression turned thoughtful. I hoped. But there were moments I doubted. The months following Earth's revelations had been chaotic. 17 governments had collapsed as their populations learned of their leaders' corruption. 3 species had temporarily withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely, focusing inward on healing their political systems. Most significantly, the exposure of the exploitation network had unleashed centuries of suppressed grievances. Minor species that had suffered under the old system demanded justice, reparations, and a voice in whatever came next. Through it all, Earth's fleet had maintained its positions, protecting vulnerable worlds while refusing to take sides in the political upheaval. That neutrality, more than anything, had convinced many skeptics that humanity's intentions were genuine. The session is beginning, announced a soft chime throughout the corridor. Inside the chamber, representatives from over 300 species took their places. Where once the proceedings had been dominated by a few powerful voices, now a diverse rotation of speakers guided the agenda. Today's session would finalize the new conclave charter, the Constitution for a Reformed Galactic. Society. High Commissioner Yun, a representative from a formerly minor agricultural world, called the session to order. The previous corrupt leadership had been removed, tried, and in most cases imprisoned for their crimes. Today we complete what began 6 months ago, Yun announced to the assembled delegates. The most comprehensive reform of galactic governance in our collective history. On the main display, the charter's final draft appeared, a document that had been publicly developed with input from every member species. No more backroom deals, no more selective enforcement. The cornerstone of our new approach, continued, Yun, is the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, a multi-species fleet dedicated to protecting developing civilizations and enforcing our laws without bias or corruption. All eyes turned to Admiral Han as Yun gestured for him to approach the central platform. Admiral Han of Earth has agreed to serve as the first commander of the unified fleet, Yun announced. His appointment has been approved by 92% of member worlds. Han stepped forward, uncomfortable with the attention but understanding its importance. I accept this responsibility with humility, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Earth's fleet was built to protect our world from exploitation. Now it will serve all worlds equally. The transition hadn't been simple. Many, Species remained suspicious of Earth's technological capabilities. Others questioned whether humans, as relative newcomers to the galactic stage, could truly understand the complex histories and conflicts they would be tasked with managing. But Earth's actions during the crisis had earned grudging respect. When they could have used the chaos to establish dominance, they had instead used their power to stabilize vulnerable regions and prevent opportunistic attacks on developing worlds. After the formal appointment, Han found himself surrounded by military representatives from a dozen species, his new command staff. "The Varaxian defense minister is requesting a private meeting," murmured his aide. Han nodded. The Varaxians had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all. With their corrupt leadership removed, younger, reform-minded officials had taken control, hoping to rebuild their society's reputation. In a small conference room, Han met with Minister Tok, a Varaxian who had once been imprisoned for opposing his government's expansionist policies. "Admiral," Tok began without preamble, "my people have a long road ahead to regain the galaxy's trust." "All that matters is the path you choose now," Han replied. Tok's metallic scales shifted in what Han had learned was a gesture of respect. "We've decommissioned our conquest fleet as promised. The ships are being rebuilt as scientific and exploration vessels." He paused. "But our people have centuries of military tradition. Our officers and crew need purpose." Han had anticipated this conversation. "The peacekeeping force needs experienced tactical commanders. Your people understand threats in ways others don't." "You would trust Varaxians in your fleet? After Tarsus Prime?" "I would trust Varaxians who choose to protect rather than conquer," Han answered carefully. "The point of everything we've built is that no single species, including humans, should control the galaxy's future." Across the station, similar conversations were happening as former adversaries found common ground in the new system. Not all wounds healed quickly. Some species refused to serve alongside others. Ancient grudges remained, but the framework for something better was taking shape. That evening, Han and Kim stood on the observation deck of the ECS Defiance, now designated as the flagship of the peacekeeping force. Below them, the Tarsian homeworld glowed blue-green, still blissfully unaware of how close they had come to subjugation. "We should establish contact with them soon," Kim said. "Do it properly this time. No exploitation, no cultural interference, just honest exchange." Han nodded. "One of many first contacts we'll need to handle better than our predecessors." A young lieutenant approached with a data tablet. "Sir, the first joint patrol schedules are ready for your approval." Han reviewed the assignments. Human ships paired, with vessels from formerly hostile powers, tasked with monitoring borders and responding to distress calls. A practical first step toward building trust. "We've created something unprecedented," Kim observed as the lieutenant departed. "No one knows if it will last." Han watched as a small ship from a formerly insignificant species took position alongside. An Earth cruiser preparing for the first joint patrol. "That's why we need to get it right," he said quietly. "We didn't build our fleet to rule the galaxy. We built it to change it." As the ships departed, their engines glowing against the darkness, Han felt the weight of the responsibility he'd accepted. Earth's secret armada, built to protect one world, now carried the hopes of thousands. The real work, the harder work, was just beginning.